I'm Chad Harvey, and this is AI for the C-Suite, the show for senior leaders who know AI matters and need to figure out what to do about it. Each episode, we dig into what it all actually means for middle market organizations, how it's changing decisions, strategy, leadership, and the nature of work. Let's get into it. My guest today started his AI journey the way a lot of us might, by getting laid off. Pip Bingemann was a brand strategist working at agencies in Sydney and San Francisco when the pandemic hit. Suddenly, he had a lot of time on his hands and started tinkering with the early AI tools and taught himself to code. What started as a side project to fix his own workflow turned into Springboard's, an AI platform now used by over 200 creative agencies around the world and backed by $5 million from Blackbird Ventures. But here's what makes Pip's perspective different. He's not trying to automate work. He's trying to prevent AI from making everyone's work look the same. His company recently published the world's first creativity benchmark for AI, and the findings will definitely surprise you. Pip, welcome to AI for the C-Suite.
Thanks for having us. I'm super excited to have this chat with you.
As am I. I was really stoked when we had our pre-call kind of catch up or prefab, if you will, and you were walking me through the different I guess levels or layers and names that you've got for your different settings, and that's when I knew this was going to be a different episode. So we won't go there quite yet, but we're definitely going to get to that because it got my attention. So, as I mentioned in the intro, you went from being a laid off strategist to running an AI company in what, like 2 years? Is that about right?
Yeah, probably less than that, but yes, 9 months, 12 months. Yeah, it moves quick in the AI world, as you know.
Yes, everything moves fast. So during that accelerated, compressed time frame, like walk me through that journey. What made you think that you could build something that would compete with the big AI players?
I didn't. That's the first point. It was literally just a process of play and experimentation. And so this is like taking me back, and I'll take you back a couple of years now, 2 or 3 years ago. And as you mentioned, it wasn't just myself that got laid off. It was my wife got laid off at the same time. And we very similar careers. Started in media agencies in Australia, ended up at creative shops, and then in brand marketing roles in the States. So she was at Twitter and Shopify, and so like good solid careers all across multiple markets. And we moved back home, and we both got laid off within 3 weeks of each other with all the tech layoffs that were happening at that time. And we had ended up in a little beach town with our first child, and uh, it was the first time in our lives where we decided not to like chase a career. And then the job kind of found us, and so we all of a sudden had time to experiment and play. And as you mentioned, like AI about 3 years ago was just bubbling up, and when we'd first experienced ChatGPT, um, we thought it was amazing, but we also thought it was pretty shitty for the work that we wanted to do and the workflows that we wanted to achieve. And so when they released the API, um, we thought there could be a better way to do this, and we're lucky to be surrounded by a little tech community where we lived, and we taught ourselves how to code very badly. um, and this was before like vibe coding was a thing, so like you actually had to learn what Python meant and how to call on an API and how to solve errors and do it yourself. And so we created these workflow tools for ourselves to help us explore more ideas in our freelance work that we're doing for brands and creative agencies, doing brand strategy, or like we did pricing, all sorts of weird stuff. We'll just do anything. And every time we showed people these really bad tools, because they were bad at the time, they would go, "Whoa! I didn't know that you could do that with AI."
Hmm.
Um, and so we showed a bunch of people, and we had two clients who gave us 20 grand each and said, "We will pay you 40, effectively 40 grand to turn that into a software or product." And that was where the light bulb went off for us. We didn't think we could get paid for use like for lines of code. I didn't think that was a real job. But clearly it's a big job. And so we found our co-founder, who's amazing, a guy called Kieran Brown, because he's an like-minded thoughts. Like he's a creative person. He did creative traditional schools, ended up getting a PhD in machine learning to turn this into a product. And it just kind of grew and sprawled from there. So that there was no desire, there was no master grant plan. We didn't think we could do it better than anyone else. It was I like to say it was an experiment that went wrong. Um, yeah,
So wrong it went right.
yeah, exactly.
So was it that first paycheck? Well, not paycheck, but was it that first amount of money that came in that made you realize, oh, hey, we got something. This could actually be a real AI startup, or was there a different trigger?
Um, Yeah, that's a great question because the first time we're actually on stage, it was a very small conference. It was an AI conference, a creativity AI conference in Sydney, and it was probably 150 people, and that's where we first showed it. And when we showed people that, we literally saw the reactions on their faces, and so that was kind of like the moment we go, oh, there's something here. And so that's when we'd started going, oh, let's go actually go like test the waters with some friendlies that we know. And it kind of then turned into like, yeah, we'll go give you some money. So like the product got almost pulled into existence in that sense.
That's interesting. And it's interesting from a lot of perspectives, but really jumped out at me is you had to be face to face with other humans in order for you to realize this AI technology that we're building is actually a viable product and we might have a real company. So
Yeah.
just kind of an interesting juxtaposition there for me.
Yeah, which it's like any good ideas. I think you actually want to see into the eyes of someone. Like we play in the world of creative ideas, and I've always played in that space. And you know when you've got an idea when you see someone else's eyes light up, or they go, "Oh, but what if we did this?" And as soon as you get like that, it's like, "Oh, there's something here. Let's keep digging and digging and digging." Um, yeah.
How difficult was it for you to make that transition from being in the creative world, being a non technical, or maybe I'll call you a semi technical founder because not everybody can pick up Python like that. I don't want to call you a non technical founder, a semi technical founder. How difficult was it for you to make that shift to semi technical founder from coming from the creative world? Was that difficult or did you find it to be rather seamless?
Um, I've always been curious, and I've always gone down rabbit holes, and I think this is just a different rabbit hole. And so that is, I would say that skill set is something that's always come natural to me, just a curious mind. The coding side was difficult for me at the time,
Hmm.
but I was lucky to be surrounded by people that it wasn't difficult for. And again, like this isn't like all I think with a lot of these stories, it sounds like one or two people do these big things, and the reality of it isn't that. It was so many other people around us at the time, and it was a career of like goodwill that we could pick up the phone and call people and say, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And so there's too many people to mention in that statement. So it was curiosity with opportunity that led to that, I would say.
It's interesting to me as well, and I'll shift gears in a minute here. But you've talked about the tech community in Australia where you are. Do you think that you could have had the same level of success and built this product in San Francisco or in one of the more traditional larger tech hubs?
No. Like, and when I say in Australia at the time, it wasn't just like it wasn't Sydney. We weren't in Sydney at the time. Sydney is a big city with a big tech community. We're in a tiny beach town called Noosa that no one in America people would know of the Noosa yogurt maybe, but it's actually there's a beach in Australia called Noosa. It's probably 3,000, 5,000 people live there. It's like tiny. But within this space, I will make a special shout out to a guy called Chris Bowden who um, loves technology, loves seeing other people succeed, and he'd fostered this community. And so it was a co-working space where I was just working, and he's the person that kept pushing and getting me excited about this. I don't think that would have happened in a big place because we would have gotten drowned out. People would, I think, often people see you as a competitor, but when you're in a small place, you want to see the community succeed. You want to do it so that you can go, oh shit, like this little region has done something. And so it was the generosity and support of a small community, which I think gave us the confidence to keep going.
Do you feel that you've infused some of that spirit into the DNA of the product and into your current organization? Have you been able to carry that through?
100%. So our co-founder Kieran, who I mentioned, we got so lucky to find him because Kieran, You can't find this guy on LinkedIn. The only presence of this guy called Kieran is his website, which has got his PhD research papers and his artworks. And he's got this weird mind of PhD AI ML, but also art. And he doesn't exist on LinkedIn. And we got invited into, we got introduced to him. And I still vividly remember like one of the first couple of conversations that we had. And we never wanted to create a grindy startup of like, gotta work 16-hour days, like 8 days a week to win. And so I think that mentality has gone all the way through. It's like, hey, no, we're building this because we believe in doing things a different way. We believe in variation. We think the other major LLMs out there are amazing in what they can do, but they're just not good for creativity because they're built for general purpose. And so that belief and that approach to almost life flows through into the business. And we're really lucky to have a bunch of people that kind of think and feel that same way. But it definitely stems from the three of us as founders and where this business started from and where we're trying to go.
You touched on something, and I want to really dig into that because it's been really clear to me from our conversations that it is the issue of, I'm going to call it homogenization, right? I think you talk about this AI age that we're in right now, perhaps leading to an age of average, right? Where everybody's work starts to look the same. I want to know more about this from your perspective. What are you seeing in the market that makes you believe that we could be leading being led, I guess, into an age of average?
Yeah, there is no doubt in my mind that is exactly where we are going. And I'll give your listeners a few little things to go and test it for themselves because this is the best way to go see it yourself. Okay, and so let me first start by saying AI is amazing in what it can do. Um, but it is sending every single person to the same place. And the scary part, particularly within, I think, language models, is that when you have a chat with a language model, it feels very personal and it feels like you're getting personal advice that is for you only. But that advice is getting whispered into every single person's ear at the same time. And so I'll give you a couple of examples. If you ask any language model, any of the large language models in the world for a random number between 1 and 10, they will all give you a 7 and then say, give me another number, you'll get a 3 or 4. Give me another number, you'll get an 8 or 9 every single time without fail. It's like 98 to 99% probability that will happen. And it doesn't matter the language model you use, who you are, your history with that chat model, is that they all give you the same answers. And the reason for that is that these models have been created as probability machines to give you answers. And so, the OpenAIs, the Anthropics, the Googles, the Groks of this world, they are all competing right now to be an answering machine. They're all competing to be the new front page of the internet where accuracy is important. But in creativity, in good marketing, good advertising, you don't want to look the same as everyone else. You need inspiration. And so really what we're doing is we are breaking these models for inspiration instead of answers. I don't want to try and give you the answer. I want to give you inspiration. And so this problem extends beyond the language model world. It goes into the visual world as well. If you start seeing a lot of websites that look blue and purple, it's because people have been lazy and vibe coding websites. Yeah. So I'll give you another example that you listeners can go and do. Go to Google search and search AI designed website. Click Google Images, scroll down, it'll be a sea of blue and purple. You can do this with any image model. Is that same prompts, even if they're different, lead to the same place because the models are trying to be correct and they're trying to send you down a certain path, which is the opposite of what creativity is, or good creativity is anyway.
Mm-hmm. Very clear that you are focused on breaking that, and we are going to get more into that. Are you seeing anything outside of the work that you're doing right now that leads you to believe that that trend might diverge or might get bucked or might get broken? Or do you think we are on railroad tracks to a homogenized future?
There will be people that try and break away from it. Uh, However, I think humans at a high level default to easy.
No.
No, and the scary thing for me is that when we rely on 3 or 4 companies,
Mm.
and not even 3 or 4 companies, 2 companies, if we're talking about language models, you're either an OpenAI person or you're a Google person. And even if you're a Microsoft person, because that's what your business is, you're still an OpenAI person because it's the same damn model. So in reality, is you're one of 2 camps, yeah. And these tools, like I said, are amazing. Do not get me wrong. I think they're incredible in what they can do, but they give everyone the same answer. And so, unless there is awareness of this issue, then you will never, ever start to get any sort of challenges to it. Um, and so, what I hope is that there is a world where there is industry specific based tools that are designed for different use cases. Because what we're trying to build is shit for general purpose. Like, if we're trying to build a model for variation where every time you answer it, you're going to get something different. Okay, and so if we were trying to do that in the health world, that would be a horrible, a disastrous use case. ChatGPT just opened up a health model to give you accurate answers. But so the game that they're playing is accuracy. Like the one of the biggest criticisms of AI is that they hallucinate. Yeah, hallucinations are seen as a bad thing, but in creativity, we believe that hallucinations are a good thing. That's why artists forever have chopped their ears off, taken drugs, and done artwork. Like, yeah, like it's a feature, not a bug. And so we encourage that. Like we're like, yeah, give us more of that. It's more fun.
Let's talk a little bit about that as a feature, and let's talk a little bit about what your research has showed is in fact the homogenized case out in the world, and I'm specifically talking about that creativity benchmark for AI that
Yeah.
you ran. If I'm recalling, if my notes are right, you ran tests I think on 16 different systems. Is that
Hmm.
sound about right? Okay.
Hmm.
So first off, I'm interested. What was the most surprising finding from the tests that you ran there? Did anything jump out or surprise you, or was
Yeah.
everything expected?
No. There's a couple of surprising things. Okay, so I'll give you a very high level on what the research did and how it worked before I go into some of those results. Then I'll give some
Perfect.
good context. So research is what we did is we wanted to understand what models inspired the best ideas in humans. And so what we did is we generated thousands, we did over 10,000, 11,000 matchups of different creative ideas. And I used to call it Tinder for ideas. We showed people two ideas and you swiped left if you liked it, or if you didn't like it, and swiped left if you like it. Yeah. So the ideas were produced by different models. We didn't tell people what the models are. We just said, do you like idea A or idea B? Blind test on do you like idea A or B? So that was effectively the test. And then so from that, what we could do is look at which language models humans preferred for the creative output of those ideas. That was step one. And step two was then we created a language model judge, which then we let the AI do the same test. So AI, you judge the work. Okay. And so what we found is that the difference in preference of the models for humans was about 50-50. Like some of the smallest models in the world did just as good as some of the biggest models in the world. The humans can't agree. It's like how I summarize that. Like your taste, your judgment for creativity is different to mine, and it's because it's a very subjective thing. Okay. The funny thing though is that when you did that same test with the models had clear favorites. There was like an order of magnitude of 10x more confident in their answers of the models. And they said the top three models were all reasoning based models, and so like the thinking based models, regardless if it was an Anthropic, an OpenAI, or a Gemini one. And so for me, it suggested that like these models prefer logic. They prefer A to B to C to D, whereas humans just go, I like that. And I don't know why. I can't tell you why I don't like it, but I like it. Yeah. And so that was the first big finding of that. Trying to use models to judge creativity just will never ever work because they don't have feelings. Yeah. They don't know, they don't have taste. So there's a very, very big finding there. Um, and then the second thing we started to realize is that the variation of these models, it was incredibly low of the output. And so once we ran these models again and again and again and again, we just started to see the exact same answers every single time. And that's an area of research which has become much, much bigger. The number one AI research paper, there's an organization called NeurIPS, I believe, who do all the AI research papers. The winning paper last year was about the homogenization of these models all coming to the same place, and that's something that we saw in our own research as well.
It almost sounds like if the technology or the proper data set existed, you'd be better off for the type of creative work that you're talking about, programming a large emotional model as opposed to a large language model.
Yeah, yeah, but at the same time, like I just never believe that you like that would be ideal, but people can't even explain their own emotions. I can't tell you why I'm angry, or if I'm angry versus frustrated. Like it's very hard for us to take feelings, one part of our brains, into a logical part of our brains, which and get those things to decipher. And so that problem alone to then turn into a coding exercise is like next to impossible. Because and so like it would be amazing if you could do that, but then you're teaching a machine how to feel, and I think it's that's a different challenge altogether.
I think so. Okay. So you have also said that when it comes to AI adoption, that I believe you said, "quote Technology is the easy part."
Hmm.
If that's the easy part, what's the hard part when we're talking about AI? Is it
Yeah,
this piece in terms of the creativity, or what's the hard part?
that's the people. People are the hard part. And this goes back to almost what we were just talking about a little bit earlier. People have a very least path of resistance, and the least path of resistance is the way I did it last time.
Mm-hmm.
And so technology, I believe, is the easy part. To create really great tools that do interesting stuff isn't that hard. It takes time and money. If you got time and money, you can do it. Yeah. The hard part is then getting people to change their behavior. And so what we've started to realize, particularly as we go into bigger and bigger organizations, and like some of the biggest companies in the world now have started using springboards. Um, and what we've realized is that the tech's easy, but changing processes is vital, because if you don't change processes, you can't change people. And so really where you need to get in is at the change organizational level and go, well, cool, what is our process for coming up with ideas? And where does AI have a role and where does it not have a role? And being very, very clear about that. Um, I think yeah, sorry, I'm going to pause on that actually, because I could go on a tangent and I go down rabbit hole, so I'm going to stop. I'm going to try and catch myself.
No, no, no. I appreciate that, and I do want to go down some rabbit holes here today. You just said something that really kind of reared up and kind of slapped me in a way, because I have a lot of conversations with folks in the change management space that are trying to pull employees and pull management and pull leadership of companies into an AI powered future, and they keep hitting resistance from folks. And it really struck me when you were talking about the path of least resistance and humans being like water, following the easiest course down the road. And I just kind of realized I don't think most people realize that the path of least resistance for a lot of their work right now does flow through AI. There's so much emotion and fear and human frailty involved that fact just hasn't, I think, occurred to many of them. And I don't think I really realized that before.
Yeah, it's also the scary thing though. This is like the scariest thing, by the way, is like the over reliance on language models to do fucking everything and be the starting place for everything. And excuse my language, but this is why like AI slop was the word of the year last year, is that like people have seemingly very quickly lost the ability to write an email. And it's like, oh shit, I better put this in ChatGPT to bloody rewrite my email before I send it to my boss. And then, or link. All of a sudden, everyone's a bloody LinkedIn influencer, because it's now easier to come up with an idea, because you go, oh, I want an idea and post about this. Like the fear actually of posting something public is being eradicated. One, because it's easier, and two, I think the quality barrier, like the expectation, the fear of it has come down. And so like fear is an interesting one, because fear is double edged. It people resist AI because they're scared it's going to take our jobs. But then, but on the same time, like their fear of like they're scared of standing out and doing things differently as well. So I don't know. It's kind of goes both ways, I guess.
No, you're lighting up some different parts of my brain in this conversation here, Pip, because I think you're spot on in terms of the impact it's having on people's level of fear, more specifically their ability to overcome that fear and gain the confidence to hit, send or publish or whatever it is. And I think a lot of times, I know I can speak to this. When I write things or when I come up with things, there's always a certain level of self-doubt there. Is it good enough? Is it going to resonate with anybody? Is this going to be the proverbial tree falling in the woods? But when you have AI assist you with it, it's almost like an editor or a double check. And so you're kind of getting a little bit of a comfort blanket there in terms of, oh yeah, maybe this is okay. I'll hit send or I'll hit publish.
Yeah. The issue with this though is that it is a great editor. but it is editing every single person's work in the same style and manner. And so you might have a great idea in your head, and you go, "Oh, it's going to be quicker if I just kind of give it bullet points and let it write out the 80% of the words." But all of a sudden, the flow, the cadence of that writing becomes very similar to everyone else's. It's like, "Oh, but here's the kicker." Blah. Like, like there's these phrases and phraseology that like takes original thinking that you may have started with and turns it into, although it may still be original thinking, sometimes these like AI patterns um, hide the quality of thinking that was there in the first place. And so I don't know about you, is that I've got this weird relationship because I use OpenAI. I've got a language model ourselves, but I still use different tools because I find them interesting. But I've got this weird relationship where I start my own thinking. You go into ChatGPT, I get it up to write it out, and then I end up throwing all that shit out and rewriting it in Word anyway. And so, like, I actually think what is interesting is the combination of dumb tools and smart tools
Hmm.
of AI, but then getting out of the AI and try instead of trying to do everything with AI. And like I think like even Microsoft Copilot came under. There's actually a good joke YouTube video that came out the other day. It's like people don't want AI everywhere, and these products are now forcing AI into everything. LinkedIn post, there's an AI reply comment. That's the quickest way to generate more bloody slop into that environment. And like it's just like understanding where and when. I think is the biggest challenge.
You talked about the combination of smart tools versus dumb tools, and I think this kind of bridges that gap. One of the areas that I have found a really interesting use case, at least in the initial days, was taking writings that I have done over the last decade. I think I initially started with 20 or 30 500 to 1500 word essays or articles I'd written, running them through AI and asking it to discern my writing styles and patterns, and then reflecting that back to me. And it was an interesting exercise because it surfaced some things that I think I inherently knew but had never articulated about my creative process and what the output of that process looks like. And I'm wondering if you've done anything similar or been on any kind of similar journeys of
Yeah,
creative self-discovery.
but that is an amazing example of like a good use case of AI. Um, but put yourself in your shoes if you're starting your career and you're writing now. And
Yeah.
so this is where this circle becomes a problem. Yeah. And so in your use case, it's amazing because you had authentic, original writing of your own style, your own tone that you could put into a machine to analyze to help you understand and write better. Yeah. But if someone doesn't have that, if they don't have the pleasure of writing with a pen and paper, um, then or just a typewriter or just a Word doc without AI, then that starting place gets destroyed in the first place. Um, and so this is effectively the dead internet theory. Yeah, is that they don't I think came out last week is that there's more content generated by AI on the internet. It just overtook human content last year already. So there's more stuff on the internet that has now been AI generated than human generated, and that's a scary place to live in because these models are just going to be recursive machines that then just start more quickly going into the same place.
I don't disagree with you. Sometimes I like to take contrarian points of view, though. So maybe I'll take a contrarian point of view because I'm interested in your
Yeah,
point on
no,
this.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
So I think about what you're saying here and about the dead internet theory and about especially younger folks in terms of they don't have that same starting point that I had, right? But then I think back, I'm just old enough for our audio listeners, there's gray hair here. I'm just old enough to have actually kind of bridged the gap from card catalog to CD-ROM when I was in college and then also in grad school through kind of the burgeoning interwebs, right? So I got to see a number of different changes in how we search for and access information. And I got to tell you, I don't miss the card catalog. I don't miss going to the microfiche and the microfilm rooms as a history major and photocopying pages and having all these handwritten notes. Did it reap benefits in how I think? Yeah, probably. But is that skill set even necessary anymore? And I'm not arguing that we don't need to
Yeah.
have good writers out there, but I am arguing and wondering what is that starting point, right? And maybe it looks different now. I don't know. So I'm interested in how that strikes you.
Yeah, no, no. Look, 100% agree. We don't miss those things. And but it's a learning curve. Um, and there's something to be said for time as an ingredient. And I'm going to take an analogy out of creative world, but into any good crafts thing takes time. If you're making bread, the key ingredient is time. Like if you're making sourdough, these things rise over 24 hours. Yeah. That's why sourdough bread tastes better than yeast bread. It's the same with beer or alcohol. It is the same with good quality craftsmanship, a carpenter who takes the time to appreciate things. And so maybe it's not the tool or the how, but it's the time you're spending doing a thing and the tension, letting that live inside yourself, the doubt, like all of these things, secret ingredients, and it's got nothing to do with the tool, but you're letting your brain soak and sit in it versus going, have to get this out the door now, got to do it, got to push it out. Because the faster you go, the slower you learn. Um, and so I agree with it, but that time thing has to be replaced of understanding and learning. And I don't know what that something is. Maybe what it is that maybe education systems are not like, hey, you get to 18, see you later. Maybe you're educating until you're 30. Maybe you're in high school and universities and you're studying like more work. You spend more time analyzing and thinking about it before you get into a workforce. Because this is what we're seeing right now in the workforce right now is that junior roles are so hard to come by. Junior roles are the hardest jobs to come by right now because their reliability now. That's the reality, is that these tools are fucking amazing. And again, apologies for swearing, but they're so amazing in the hands of someone who has spent the time doing this stuff. And so, like, I would rather, like, as a business operator now, hire someone senior to knows what they're doing and give them the tools to succeed, because that is going to be a better use of time than trying to give someone the time. Now, we're swapping our perspective on this now. We're bringing in interns because we're like, oh shit, we can't be part of the problem. How do we start thinking about future workflows? But this is a major issue, is that the world is incentivized on short-term stock market performances, not long-term, like, let's get good people who could think. And these forces are more powerful than anything else in the world, unfortunately.
They really are. And this is the fascinating piece about getting to talk to folks that are helping us to invent the future, like yourself, is we've got a general purpose technology here. And we know from historical technological breakthroughs of other general purpose technologies, when they come along, they require us to reevaluate everything. So to your point, maybe education looks different in the future. I'm sure it does. How does it look different? Well, we're going to make that up as we go along, and we're probably going to make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
But I also wonder, though, too, about the future nature of work. And can we use some of these tools for the stuff that people maybe aren't built to do, that is repetitive and monotonous, and it needs to be automated? And then maybe we do start to place more value on some of these other areas that you're focused in on.
Mm. Oh, 100% agree. Like repetitive, boring, monotonous tasks should not be done unless there is a learning principle behind them, by the way. And so, like, I'll give you an example. Like, right, doing competitive reports, in the marketing and advertising world, it's something that is like a rite of passage for everyone who's coming into agency. Like, it's one of the first jobs you do is that client needs to understand what their competitor's doing, go and research, go look at their social pages, go look at what their messaging is really saying. And so that's something that is very easy to automate right now. But there is so much learning in like going and looking at the ad and understanding it and understanding the positioning, because that's a learning opportunity. But it's the balance. And again, it's like AI is not AI, like any tool. It's not good or bad. It's like how you use it. It is a tool, um, but it's then like, yeah, what happens as a result of that?
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little more specifically, and then I want to start to unpack a little bit about Springboard and what you're doing.
Mm.
I'm interested, before we get to that though, in your experience working with agencies. I think you've worked with over 200 agencies that are in some
Mhm.
various stage, successful or otherwise, of adopting or implementing AI. And I'm interested in the patterns that you're seeing there. What are you seeing with organizations that are successful versus those that struggle? Is it the people? Is it the process? Is it more of an understanding of some of the things that we're talking about? Is it something else entirely? Is it what the CEO had for breakfast? I don't know. What are you seeing out there?
What I see in the companies that get it right is, um, if I had to put it down to one thing, it would be an openness and willingness to try something new. It doesn't matter about it. It's not about money. Uh, it's not about a certain team organization or structure, but so someone's go, oh shit, there might be a better way. Let's give it a go. And that is a key defining trait that gets it right. There is things that need to happen that then support that interest, to push it along. Um, and if we go back to, like, so that earlier discussion is understanding process is something that we've started to realize. And so originally our tool was very, very rigid in the way it works. And so now we've actually changed the way we onboard clients and agencies. And we don't even show them our tool in that first meeting. Like, if we're doing a sales call, of course we show them a tool. But if they're going, cool, we're going to give you money and we want to operate this thing. First question he's asked is, show us your process, show us your decks, show us how you do this work, show us how you think. Cool, we're going to go away. And now we're going to try and customize this thing so it fits your flow and your process. And so if you break through that process barrier and understand how people actually work, then you give them the tool, it's going to be far more successful than just going, here's the tool, go do your job. Like, because then people go, well, where do I start? I don't know. But yeah.
All right. So let's talk about your tool. And I usually refrain from doing deep dives on a lot of the AI tools with my guests because I don't want this to be all about product self-promotion. That said, I really want to peek under the hood here with yours because it's fascinating to me the way that you are building this. It's fascinating to me the why behind your building it. So talk to our audience a little bit about what this thing does, why it does it, and definitely make sure that you include the names of those different levels.
The random levels. Yeah, okay, cool. I'll do that. All right, okay. It's a very hard thing to describe with words only, and I'll do my best. The easiest way to think about this thing is, like, imagine if ChatGPT was built for advertising and marketing. Okay. That is the easiest thing. And so, like, in some regards it can be like a chat screen, but really what it does is it's designed around the processes that agencies and the workflows that, coming up with good ideas starts with. And so we've built, like, effectively modules, you could call them, we call them springboards, around the traditional flow of, like, understanding the brand, doing some research on that brand, working out insights, into big campaign ideas, into campaign executions from TV scripts all the way through your LinkedIn blog posts, whatever you want it to be. And we design that as a creative play space. So kind of ChatGPT with a Figma Miro board attached to it. And so you can take early thinking and you can throw it and you can explore it, you can talk and share it and collaborate with it. That's kind of the easiest way to think about it. So it's designed to help come up with better creative ideas. And the way you come up with better creative ideas is you explore more territories. And it's in that exploration that you get to better ideas. That's the belief. Um, what is the most important thing, if that is what our business is about exploring lots of ideas, is variation baked into the model layer. And so that's what we optimize for in the technical standpoint, is how do we increase the variation of these tools so we're always giving people different stuff. And so we have 4 randomness levels built into the products to drive different degrees of variation. And so you can have it off if you're just doing normal thinking. You can do some microdosing is the next level. Then there's LSD and then there's asylum. Okay. So, like, if you really want to push it out there, you can push it out there. It's not right for everyone or every brand or every task, by the way. But sometimes if you want to microdose without microdosing, in the office, you can do it. And back to that comment earlier is that, hallucination's been used as a creative tool for all time. And, like, why can't these models hallucinate? They're actually good at it if you can point them in the right direction. And we encourage that depending on the person's taste and desire. For mild to wild is another way to think about it.
Let me jump in here real quick. I don't usually interrupt a guest when they're in the flow, but you just said something I've got to ask. So just like we use microdosing and LSD and other psychedelic substances to unlock different portions of our brain, not recommended for the kids at home, do you think that someone that has prolonged exposure and usage at, say, the asylum or the LSD level of your tool, that it might start to shape and reframe the way they process and think?
I don't think so. I don't know. What I've noticed with myself, by the way, though, is similar. It's attached to it. Is that I do get through more work. Like I see more I see more insights. Okay, and I think my taste has developed as a result of that. Okay, and so particularly in the creative agency side, the currency is kind of insights. That's the language. Like, what's the insight behind that campaign? What's the jump off point to get to a territory? Yeah, these insights. Yeah, and insights are incredibly hard to write and read, write or spot or understand. We've got a tool in Springboard. It's called the Insight Dig, and you get 15 like that. Like, here's 15 ways to think about this in a different way. And so what I've started to realize is that when I'm using pen and paper now, I write them better.
Mm.
And I think the reason for that is I'm seeing more. And your brain, to that point, slowly, without you even realize, you are learning. That subconscious brain is a very powerful thing. And so the more you see, you go, oh, that's what good looks like. That's what good looks like. So even subconsciously. So when you pull it, I think you're quicker to spot them. I don't know if that's true of on asylum level. Maybe we should like force someone in a room to only play on asylum level, take them out of that and do one of those what was like the crazy Stanford experiment, not Stanford experiments, but like the psychology experiments that they did back in the 70s,
Yeah.
like all the zapping and stuff. We could maybe do something like that. That would actually be an interesting one. Probably not recommended by by most doctors.
I'd love to see too. And you just said something else. I would love to know, and this is beyond the purview of your organization, but if you had a personality assessment with established benchmarks, maybe it's DISC or
Mm,
maybe it's predictive index, I don't know, whatever it is,
mm,
could you then start to map and tailor the tool to begin to help develop that person's creativity? So
yeah.
just some interesting feedback loop possibilities here that I hadn't thought about before our conversation.
Yeah, that's super interesting. That's actually a really interesting, like onboarding technique for even any language model. It's like, what is your personality type? You're going to ask these 15 questions. Ah, cool. And now, like, understand the custom instructions of that model to understand how it should respond to you. Like, that's actually like super interesting. There's no reason why you couldn't do that. And that's something what these models are good at. What I find that they're very good at is that they understand frameworks really well.
Mm-hmm.
And so the teaching of thinking frameworks, I think, is more important because if you know to call on the inversion technique, for instance, you can actually use that in a prompt, whatever language model it is. You go apply the inversion technique to this, and all of a sudden you're going to get a better output as a result of that because you understand or you know of that framework. The model knows of it, but unless you tell it about to use it, it's not going to use it by default.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's so interesting. I hear more and more conversations coming to bear about different metacognition techniques, about theory of mind, about different ways of you gave the example a minute ago of different frameworks and the inversion technique. I'm hearing more and more areas from neuroscience and psychology getting drawn upon to help us better use these new tools. And it sounds like you've given some substantial thought to that.
We actually, one of the interns we have at the moment is doing a double degree on data and neuroscience. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Let's get this going because you're going to think about this challenge a little bit differently. And so that, yeah, there's the data part of it, but then there's the neuroscience of understanding the brain part. Um, the other co-founder, Kieran, who's got a PhD in AI ML, he hates this analogy, by the way.
Okay, I'll lean in.
So just again, for another contrarian point of view, because he's under, him understanding how these models work. He goes, they're not like brains, and there's this connection to like relating, um, like because these models are even called neuro, whatever they're called, neuro models, like that. Even that word of neuro like links it to a brain, and they don't operate like a human brain does. And so often these things can get convoluted. But that's a point of view that I don't have a lot of knowledge on, so I'm going to shut up.
Fair enough. And you know, I've heard a lot of forward-thinking AI futurists start to talk about maybe we need to redefine intelligence, maybe we need to redefine thinking. Again, using air quotes there. To your point, I'm way out over my skis on that. I don't have expertise in neuroscience or theory of mind or any of that. But it is an interesting question because to your co-founder's point about they're not thinking again like a traditional human brain, maybe that's not so bad if we can begin to channel it in different ways.
I had this idea, this thought that I started to write a blog post on it, is that I think like people with like neurodivergent brains is actually going to be a massive superpower when in a world of AI and LM, which is so easy to believe that that's good and that's average, but having people who think differently, be it like ASD or ADHD or any like neurodivergent thinking pattern, to actually have a different point of view on that output, I think is actually a major superpower because you're almost hardwired to look at these things a little bit differently. And so I think, yeah, there's something interesting there of even like how does brains evolve when you outsource half your brain to a machine? Like there's all this interesting stuff which is going to evolve over hundreds of years.
You're spot on, and it's so interesting that you bring it up that way. I've over a decade in executive coaching, working with CEOs, founders, and there's a high level of ADHD and neurodiversity in that community, much higher than most folks think, even in traditional industries. And why this really resonated what you just said with me is I actually ran a peer group today, and one of the members just went through an evaluation process with their son who has dyslexia and ADHD. And as they went through the process, my client is like, "Well, hey doc, you got a twofer here because you've just helped me diagnose myself." And
Yeah,
what he said today in this session was, I wouldn't trade that for anything in the world because I've learned to harness it and it's a superpower. And
100%.
to your point about neurodiversity, maybe unlocking different levels here that we haven't been thinking about with the convergence with this type of technology, I think there's a lot there. Maybe that's your next startup.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. I think this, yeah, yeah, don't even go into personal stories about it, but 100% agree. Yeah.
Fair enough. Let's circle back to Asylum because I had a question I wanted to ask you about that level. What is the wackiest, craziest, most Asylum-esque output that you
Uh,
have seen that thing generate?
I mean, sometimes it just barks at me, like literally barks. It's like woof woof. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe dial it back. Sometimes it all of a sudden thinks it's like Napoleon, or and like, oh, that's kind of weird, but like, there's something interesting in that.
Yeah.
Um, and because uh, it it actually unlocks like different ways of thinking, actually, and it gives you a different perspective. There was I can't remember the exact example. I'm gonna stumble on it, but it was one for Lego, which I'd never thought of it that way. I'm gonna have to go dig back through my examples, but like I was like coming up with an idea for Lego, and I was like push it out there, and the idea sucked, but the output sucked, but it sparked something in my head that I could then run with, and that's kind of how we design it. It was like, let's give you lots and like take them as disposable, but just wait to it like goes, oh, there's something there, and then kind of off you go. So yeah, it's interesting.
I think you just made the case for meta prompts, guardrails on the back end, system constitutions, and not hooking it up to the weapon system.
No, yeah, that's probably a bad idea.
Yeah,
Yeah,
probably.
exactly right. Yeah, that sounds like a recipe for disaster.
All right. So, talk to me a little bit more about this tool as a thinking partner as opposed to an automation layer. We've kind of nibbled around the edges of this, but I'm interested.
Yeah,
How do you position this with your team? What does this look
yeah,
like in practice as a creative agency or as an individual creative?
yeah. Yeah, most businesses or startups in this space, in this AI marketing, technology, advertising space, what they try and do is to make execution faster and cheaper. We don't care about making execution faster and cheaper, partly because like if I'm really honest, I think that's going to become a commodity where you click button, get ad. And I think that's a dangerous place to be. And so instead, what we try to do is go further upstream and be a thinking partner to help come up with better ideas. Because if you've got better ideas, when like click button get ad technology is really great and it's already pretty damn great, if you've got a better starting place and idea, you're going to get a better output. And so that's what we think about it now. In saying that, when our product is used really well, people use it in that way to explore more ideas and to guide them through a process, their own process, to spark and open up different discussion points, basically. When it's used bad, is that you can use our tool to get a TV script out, put it in 30 seconds, and it can be pretty good and pretty convincing. I hate it when that happens personally, but I can't also control how people are going to use that. You can start with an intent and then philosophy, and you can do things in the background to hopefully stick to that, but you can never control. Like I said, it's a tool. Tools aren't good or bad, it's just like how you use them, and that's down to an individual's preference, and that's not my place to say.
Perfect. All right, let's circle this back around a little bit to practical land, right? Because not most organizations are not going to want to have the tool that you've got unless it's in their marketing or the creative department.
Yep.
So you've got a lot of experience in this area. You've been thinking about this a lot. That comes through in spades during our conversation. But put yourself in the shoes of a middle market company that's just starting to think seriously about AI. I know it's hard to believe that there's still organizations out there that haven't wrapped their arms around it yet, but they are many and legion. So maybe they've dabbled, but they haven't made any real commitment. What, in your experience, should they be focusing on first?
Yeah. You actually mentioned one right up front. The easiest thing is like, as much as I hate on ChatGPT and Anthropic of the world, they're fucking, like I said, they're great tools. Use them. They're powerful, powerful tools. I think the easiest thing that everyone should do is build their own custom instruction tool that keeps their tone of voice consistent. You got to start with understanding what your tone of voice is about, but everyone needs to produce stuff into the world. And the more you keep that consistent, the more it's going to be better. So people understand your brand and it's not going to brand like marketing outputs. But like that stuff is great. It is. And but don't just open up new window, write me a LinkedIn post for my new product X, Y, and Z. Take the time to understand what a custom instruction is, build that, take work that you've done, learn from it, and then apply that. So that is like such a little baby step, an easy step that everyone's got the ability to do if they spend 5, 10 minutes understanding what custom instructions are. Most people default and just don't do that. And so I think that is literally the most powerful thing you can do. Um, yeah, that's if you want one actionable thing, that's what I would do.
Brilliant. Where do you see? Let's take the inverse or the reverse of that. Where do you see people wasting time and money in the early stages? If you gave us a really good solid takeaway, so what's the inverse of that?
Pain anyone who says that they're an AI expert. If someone comes out and says they're an AI expert, they're a liar. That's is the thing I would say. They can be AI curious and do some really interesting stuff in a certain domain and field, but don't believe the hype. The other thing I'd say, the big watch that I see is people thinking that AI is a shortcut to cheaper, faster, better work. And they look to then use AI to automate every part of a supply chain process, whatever that supply chain is, and they remove human judgment. Because these models do not have human judgment, and human judgment is still taste curation is still like the most powerful thing. And so this is like, again, if someone comes in and says, oh yeah, I can automate that from A to Z, sure, you probably can, but is it actually going to do anything for you? Maybe not. But we have AI automations in our business, but we understand where a human interjects and where they don't. So that's kind of yeah, that's two things.
Excellent. One last question here. What do you see happening over the next 12 to 18 months that might be counterintuitive? We talked about a lot of different things. We've talked about homogenization of content. We've talked about slop. We've talked about a lot of the pitfalls. But what do you see as something that you'd be willing to say, yeah, I'll throw that stake in the ground as a prediction?
Yeah, great question. Haven't thought that far ahead. People, what's a classic quote? You overestimate what's going to happen in 12 months and underestimate what will happen in 5 years. We've been guilty of that in our own business. I think the big overestimation that everyone's had is this idea of having super intelligence by the world reports of 2026. I think there was it like a couple of years ago. We're going to have super intelligence by 2026, and there's a couple saying we'll have super intelligence by 2030. So my bet is that we're not going to have super intelligence by any time in the next 5 years. I'll say that, not even just in the next 12, 18 months, definitely not 12, 18 months, but there was like at one point predictions that we're going to get there because the idea that scaling laws and compute, you throw more money and you solve all the world's problems. I just don't think that's true. Nor do I think people want that, which is the other half of the equation. If people resist it, they resist it. And people will resist it for all sorts of reasons. So that would be that one. I might leave it at that because that's a safe, easy one that I'll get right. And if I don't, we're all out of a job anyway. So who
Indeed.
cares?
Well, and I
Yeah.
think the way that you ended that, I've got a number of folks I've spoken with. We've even mentioned it on the show recently. I do think 26 is going to be the year of anti AI resistance or AI pushback. We're
Seen
already
it.
starting to see that. Yeah, we are. So
100% we're seeing it. And there was a big little controversy in an advertiser here in Australia where people spotted their advertising was like AI generated from word to go, the whole website, and it just got destroyed. People just don't want to see it, and they're seeing it quicker and quicker. So yeah, I think it is a bit of a fight back, pushback.
Pip, I love what you're doing. I love what you're all about. I love, love. Couldn't say it more. What you've built and why you're building it. For people that want to learn more about you, about your product, about how they can start to use Springboard, where do they need to go?
Yeah, Springboard.ai is the number one place. We're actually going to be launching a self-serve version of the product in like a month. We're going to have some bunch of beta users. So if you're interested in that, we're probably going to have a wait list. Jump on if you want to test it out. So we're rebuilding the thing there, and that's probably the best place to start. Otherwise, LinkedIn is where we post all of our wild experiments. So just Pip Bingemann. Pip Bingemann's a very unique name, so it's usually pretty easy to find on LinkedIn.
And when I want to comment on whatever you've posted, I should just mash that AI response button.
Yeah, exactly. It'll help the algorithm. So of course, just auto reply. I should get it's like The Simpsons, like the little computer enter. That's what will happen. The world will destruct. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Pip, I really enjoyed our time together. Thanks for chatting
Yeah,
with
me
me
too.
today.
Yeah, me too. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You,
Peace.
you bet. And for our listeners, thank you once again for listening to AI for the C-Suite. If this episode was useful, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on all the socials, but especially LinkedIn. Just don't hit that AI reply button. And check out AIforthec-suite.com. Until next time, keep your algorithms running, your leadership evolving, and your AI in check. Take care, everybody.